It's taken 5 years to organise and modernise the British National Party so that we become electable. And in the last couple of years we have indeed been elected. We've now got a record number of 25 local councillors, the length and breadth of the country. But it's only 25 councillors, not a single MP. We've never, as far as I know, even had anyone step inside the Houses of Parliament. But even without stepping inside it, we've had an immense effect. In the last few weeks, the whole of British politics has become centred around our core issue, immigration and asylum. When the likes of Blunkett or Clark and Blair and Howard talk about the British people now being concerned about asylum and this being a legitimate concern, when they talk about immigration having gone so far that it's now a legitimate concern, they are only talking about these things because the British National Party and our success so far has forced them to talk about these things. We are the ones who made them sit up and take notice of the British people, because they don't take any notice at all of what people say in pubs or in their own front room. They can ignore that. They're only taking notice because the British people are showing now that they're prepared to take their fears and their moans and their grumbles and to put them behind an organised, modernised political party which will really do something to put things right. So it's the success, the advance of the British National Party which has put, first of all, asylum on the agenda, and then in the last few days, the whole question of immigration and multiculturalism on the agenda as well. We had an amazing BBC News at 10 report where they actually showed the same footage in Green Street in East London, the same footage of 1 or 2 white people surrounded by a sea of non-white immigrants there, many of whom are perfectly decent people, but that's not the point. As this BBC broadcast showed the other day, they started off saying that 50 years ago this was a white working class community, and then they showed the last couple of whites in the whole area. Now we did that on our British National Party TV broadcast last year for the European elections, and we were slammed as being extremists and troublemakers, and now BBC, the very heart of the multicultural, multiracial propaganda machine, was saying precisely the same thing, and saying this area used to be a white working class community and now it is changed completely. And they showed an old lady, a white old lady there, and they said, well, how do you feel about this? And she paused and she said, well, to be honest, we feel marginalised. And then they went to an old white fella in the street and said, what does he feel about living in that area now? And he said, well, most mornings I'm the only honky in the street. And our pressure has forced the BBC and the whole of the British establishment to start openly talking about issues like that. We've taken it far beyond just asylum. It's now about the whole question of what this country was, what this country is now, and the danger of what this country is going to become unless, in the very short space of time, we can turn things around. And we've done that with just 25 councillors. So far, of course, you know, they're only going to be talking about these things. There's an election coming, so they'll talk tough on immigration. After the election, they'll try and forget all about it. But not if we're there to keep on pressing and pushing and making it clear that the British people now have a real choice. They don't have to vote for a party such as the Labour Party, which wants a lot more immigration, or the Lib Dems who want unlimited immigration, or the Conservatives who only want immigration if they'll come here and take our jobs. That's not the choice anymore. It's now a choice between all the parties who want immigration and the British National Party, which says, quite simply, this country is full. We will not allow any of them, more of them, into our country under any circumstances whatsoever. If we need our own doctors, our own nurses, then we must pay our own people enough money and give them enough training so they can do the jobs for us, instead of looting the third world of cheap doctors and nurses who in fact are far more badly needed over there than they are over here. But we're only going to get that constant pressure if we can build on our 25 councillors and get more councillors, and in due course get people into here. It's been said as a joke that the only man ever to enter Parliament with honest intentions was Guy Fawkes. I've got some sympathy with the view, but actually it's not true. In recent times you can think, for example, of people like Enoch Powell, Peter Shaw, Sir Richard Boddy, even someone like Tony Benn. They were decent, honest men there for their own decent and honest intentions, even if sometimes some of those intentions were misguided. But the pack of them in there now are utterly useless. They're corrupt and they've sold this country out. And we only need 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 British National Party MPs in that place to transform British politics even further. You think of what we've done with 25 councillors, we get through 3 or 4 MPs in there, and all the corruption and the perversion and the dealing in cocaine in the toilets in that place, it's all going to come to a grinding halt, or we're going to be able to expose it. Because even when we're in there, we're not going to be part of their party game. We'll be part of the British parliamentary process, part of the British constitutional process, but we're not going to be part of their parliamentary shadowboxing. We're going to be in there, but something quite apart and separate from that. And the very shock of having 3 or 4 of us in there, really probing, really pushing, really complaining and exposing corruption, and really showing that there is now a parliamentary bloc which gives the British people a genuine choice. That is going to have so much impact on British politics that even if we didn't get anyone elected past those 3 or 4, we will transform this country. Certainly what's happening now in places like Denmark and Holland, where basically the doors have been slammed tight on immigration, if we just get 1 British National Party MP in there, let alone 3 or 4, I guarantee you the same thing will happen. That in itself isn't enough. The whole question of the problems of multiculturalism and multiracialism and the way in which we British have been turned into second-class citizens in our own country, that's a whole separate debate. It's a whole series of extra problems that have got to be addressed, talked about and dealt with. But the very first thing to do is to shut the doors to any more coming in. And if over the next few years, not necessarily this election, but if we use this election as a building block, and in 1 or 2 elections' time we've got a small number of British National Party MPs in that place, I guarantee you the doors to our poor, overcrowded country will be slammed shut for good.